Before we begin the story, let us know where you're watching from by leaving a comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the story, everyone. The chandeliers cast their judgment like 1,000 watching eyes. And Emily Larson knew tonight would change everything. From her hidden position on the marble balcony of the Grand Crestwood Hotel, the 9-year-old girl watched the charity gala unfold below like a glittering chess game. She wasn't supposed to be here. Her father, Lucas Larson, had left her with the nanny again, declaring that children had no place at society events. But Emily had learned long ago that the most important moments happened when adults thought no one was watching. She pressed herself against the cold balustrade, her small fingers gripping the edge as she spotted her target. There, Nadia Freeman moved through the crowd like liquid grace, her deep purple gown complementing her rich brown skin that seemed to glow under the warm lights. Even from this distance, Emily could see what her father had tried so hard to destroy: dignity, strength, and an unbreakable spirit. Nadia was checking the final arrangements for the auction, her tablet in hand, directing the staff with quiet efficiency. As the city's most sought-after luxury event designer, she had transformed the ballroom into a masterpiece of elegance. Hanging gardens cascaded from the ceiling, their white orchids and silver leaves creating an ethereal canopy. Each table setting was a work of art with hand-blown glass centerpieces that caught and reflected light like captured stars. Emily's chest tightened as she watched the woman who had once been her stepmother, the only person who had ever braided her hair with patient hands, who had read her stories, even when Lucas demanded she attend to his needs instead. The woman her father had discarded like yesterday's newspaper, when Chloe Pennington had walked into his office with her 2 4-year-old smile and her father's investment portfolio. The memory burned. Nadia packing her things while Lucas laughed on the phone with his lawyer, boasting about how he'd hidden assets, how she'd get nothing, how she'd never amount to anything without his name and connections. Emily had been 6 then, watching from the stairs as Nadia had looked up, seen her, and mouthed the words that had sustained Emily through 3 years of loneliness. "Be strong, baby girl." A commotion below drew Emily's attention. Her father had arrived. Lucas Larson entered the ballroom like he owned it, which Emily knew he practically did through various shell companies and intimidation tactics. At 38, he still cut an imposing figure in his 3-piece suit, his blonde hair perfectly styled, his blue eyes scanning the room with predatory assessment. On his arm, Chloe giggled at something he whispered, her red dress designed to ensure every eye followed her movements. Emily watched her father work the room, shaking hands with the mayor, clapping the district attorney on the shoulder, kissing the cheeks of society wives who whispered behind their fans about his scandalous divorce. He was in his element, the puppet master pulling strings, unaware that his own daughter had been documenting every cruel word, every shady deal, every moment of his true nature. The auction was about to begin when it happened. Nadia took the stage to introduce the evening's proceedings. Her voice was clear and professional as she thanked the sponsors and outlined the cause. A new wing for the Children's Hospital. She was radiant, confident, in complete control of the moment. That's when Lucas struck. Well. His voice boomed across the ballroom. Deliberately loud. Deliberately cruel. Nadia Freeman. Everyone, from cleaning my house to what is it you call yourself now? An event designer. He laughed, the sound sharp as breaking glass. I suppose we should applaud her journey from maid to whatever this is. The ballroom fell silent. 500 of the city's most influential people turned to stare. Nadia's hand stilled on the microphone, but she didn't flinch. Emily pulled out her phone, already recording, her young fingers steady despite her racing heart. "Tell me, Nadia," Lucas continued, emboldened by the attention, by Chloe's tittering laugh beside him. "Did you design this event the same way you designed our marriage? All surface beauty, with nothing substantial underneath. Though I suppose you've had practice now. How many divorces fuel your little business? Do desperate women hire you, hoping you'll teach them how to gold dig as effectively as you tried to?" Several people gasped. The mayor's wife covered her mouth. But Lucas wasn't finished. "Ladies and gentlemen, let this be a lesson." He raised his champagne glass mockingly. "This is what happens when you elevate people beyond their station. You can dress them up, give them opportunities, but breeding always tells. Isn't that right, Nadia? You can take the girl out of the projects, but you can't take the projects out of the girl." Nadia's voice cut through his speech like a blade through silk. She stepped forward, and somehow, impossibly, she seemed to grow taller, more luminous. "Is that what you were going to say, Lucas? The same thing you said the night you backhanded me for outshining you at the partners' dinner?" Or was it what you said when you forged my signature on the postnuptial agreement? The silence deepened, became something living, breathing. Nadia descended from the stage, each step measured, regal. You want to discuss breeding? Let's discuss it. My mother was a nurse who worked 3 jobs to put herself through school. My father was a teacher who believed education could change the world. They taught me that character isn't inherited. It's chosen every single day. She stood directly in front of him now, and Emily could see her father's hand trembling slightly around his champagne flute. You're right about one thing, though, Nadia continued, her voice carrying to every corner of the ballroom. I did rise above my station, the station of being your wife, your victim, your convenient target. And yes, my business is built on helping women rebuild after men like you try to destroy them. There are 17 women in this room alone who have hired me. Would you like to know why? Lucas's face had gone pale, his mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. Because I don't just design events, Lucas. I design resurrections. I take the ashes you men leave behind, and I help women rise from them, phoenix after phoenix after phoenix. And every single success, every smile I help create, every woman who stands taller because of what we've built together, that's my revenge. Not against you, because you're not worth that energy, but against the idea that we should stay broken because you tried to break us. She turned to address the room, and in that moment, Emily saw what her father had tried to destroy and failed. True power, the kind that didn't need cruelty to sustain it. The auction will begin in 5 minutes, Nadia announced calmly. I hope you'll all bid generously. After all, the children we're helping tonight deserve better than the examples some of us set. The room erupted in applause, not polite society applause, but real, thunderous approval. The mayor's wife started it, standing as she clapped. Then the district attorney's daughter, then table after table rose to their feet, applauding not just Nadia's words, but her courage, her dignity, her absolute destruction of Lucas Larson without raising her voice or lowering herself to his level. Lucas stood frozen, his champagne glass still raised in his mock toast as the room's approval washed over his ex-wife. Chloe tugged at his arm, hissing something about leaving, but he seemed rooted to the spot, watching his carefully constructed social dominance crumble in real time. From the balcony, Emily smiled for the first time in 3 years. She saved the recording, labeled it Evidence File Number 1, and created a new folder on her phone, Operation Phoenix. Her father had made a critical error tonight. He'd reminded Emily why Nadia deserved justice, and Emily Larson, 9 years old and wise beyond her years, had just appointed herself the architect of his destruction. She caught sight of a man she'd seen at other events, Ethan Caldwell, the billionaire philanthropist who always seemed to donate wherever Nadia worked. He was watching Nadia with something that looked like admiration mixed with longing. Emily filed that information away, too. Her plan would need allies. As the auction began and Nadia returned to her work with unshaken professionalism, Emily slipped back through the service corridors she'd memorized weeks ago. She had work to do, evidence to gather, and a woman to avenge who didn't even know she had a guardian angel. The nanny would never notice she'd been gone. Her father wouldn't check on her tonight. He never did, after public humiliations, preferring to rage at household staff or drink himself into oblivion. But Emily would remember everything. She would document everything because daughters of cruel men learn to be patient, and tonight, the real game had finally begun. Chapter 2. The Daughter's Strategic Move. 3 weeks had passed since the gala, and Emily Larson sat at her computer at 3 o'clock a.m., executing the most delicate phase of her plan, while the house slept around her. The mansion felt like a mausoleum at this hour, all marble edges and cold surfaces that had never known the warmth of a real home. Her father's interior designer, the third one this year, had decorated everything in shades of white and gray, what Chloe called minimalist chic, but what Emily recognized as soulless emptiness. Even her own room felt like a hotel suite, nothing like the cozy space Nadia had created for her years ago, with hand-painted murals and shelves full of books that weren't just for show. Emily's fingers flew across the keyboard with the skill of someone who'd been teaching herself to code since age 7. Another secret her father didn't know. The venue cancellation had been easy. She'd simply called the Riverside Country Club, pretending to be Chloe's assistant, claiming a scheduling conflict. The caterers had been trickier, but Emily had learned to perfectly mimic Chloe's Valley Girl accent and entitled tone. Oh my God, did Lucas not tell you? We're totally going in a different direction. Yeah, cancel everything. We'll call you. The final touch had been the leak to the society blogger, Cassandra Worthington's daughter, suggesting that the Larson-Pennington engagement party was in chaos. Nothing sells papers like rich people's disasters. Now Emily pulled up Nadia's contact information, not from her father's phone, which would leave a trace, but from the business card she'd stolen from the gala's registration desk. Her hands trembled slightly as she composed the email from a fake account she'd created to look like Chloe's personal assistant. Miss Freeman, I'm reaching out on behalf of the Larson-Pennington family regarding an urgent matter. The engagement party scheduled for this Saturday has encountered severe complications. Miss Pennington specifically requested your services. Having witnessed your exceptional work at the Crestwood Gala, she insists only you can salvage this situation. Please respond at your earliest convenience. Emily hesitated before hitting send. Was she being cruel, forcing Nadia back into her father's orbit? But then she remembered the recording she'd captured last week. Lucas on the phone with his lawyer, laughing about how he'd hidden assets during the divorce, how Nadia had gotten exactly what she deserved, which was nothing. She hit send. The response came faster than expected, at 3:47 a.m. Of course, Nadia would be awake. Emily remembered she always worked late, planning every detail to perfection. The response was professional but guarded. Thank you for reaching out. However, I believe there may be some confusion. My schedule is fully committed for this weekend. I can recommend several excellent alternatives. Emily smiled grimly and executed phase 2. She called the house landline from her cell phone, knowing it would wake Chloe, but not her father, who slept with earplugs and an eye mask like the prima donna he was. She heard Chloe's groggy voice answer from the master bedroom. Hello. Who the hell is calling at this hour? Emily pitched her voice higher, younger, adding an edge of panic she didn't feel. Chloe, it's Emily. I'm so sorry to wake you, but I just got a call from Sarah at the country club. She says the engagement party is canceled, and the caterers called too. They said you canceled, but Daddy's entire board is supposed to come, and the Japanese investors— What? Chloe's voice sharpened from sleepy to shrill in an instant. I didn't cancel anything. Oh my God, your father is going to kill me. The Takahashi family is flying in specifically for this. Maybe Nadia could help. Emily suggested innocently. I have her card from when she used to live here. She's really good at fixing things fast. Nadia, your father's ex-wife? Are you insane? But she's the best in the city, Emily pressed, adding a small sniffle for effect. And if the party fails, Daddy will be so angry. You know how he gets about appearances. Remember what happened to his last fiancée when she embarrassed him at the Derby? There was a long pause. Emily could practically hear Chloe's limited brain cells firing, remembering that Lucas's previous fiancée had been unceremoniously dumped and socially blacklisted after a single public mishap. Give me her number, Chloe demanded. Emily rattled it off, then added the killing blow. Chloe, please don't tell Daddy I called. He already thinks I'm useless. If he finds out I knew about the disaster and didn't fix it myself somehow, fine, whatever, go back to bed. The line went dead. Emily counted to 300, then watched on her tablet, connected to the house's security system, as Chloe crept out of the bedroom and made a call from the terrace. The conversation was everything Emily had hoped for. Chloe, desperate and panicked, offered Nadia triple her usual rate. When Nadia hesitated, Chloe played the card Emily had planted. Look, I know there's history, but Lucas doesn't even have to know. I'll handle everything. Be your only contact, please. His daughter even suggested you. She says you're the only one who can pull this off. That last part was the key. Emily had counted on Nadia's soft spot for her, the maternal instinct that Lucas had mocked as weakness, but Emily recognized as strength. By 4:30 a.m., it was settled. Nadia would take the job. Emily deleted all traces of her digital footprints, then pulled out her physical notebook, the one she kept hidden behind a false panel in her closet. She wrote in careful script, Phase 2 complete. Nadia will be here Saturday. Must ensure 1. Hidden cameras in place. 2. Father's reaction recorded. 3. Seeds planted with guests about his business troubles. 4. Ethan Caldwell receives invitation. The last part was crucial. She'd done her research on Caldwell, a self-made billionaire known for ethical business practices, who quietly donated millions to women's shelters and educational programs. Most importantly, he'd been photographed watching Nadia at no fewer than 15 events in the past year, always maintaining respectful distance, but clearly interested. Emily had even hacked into the Society photographer's cloud storage and found dozens of accidentally deleted photos of Ethan looking at Nadia when he thought no one was watching. The longing in his expression was so pure, it made Emily's chest ache for the mother she'd lost, and the love story that might still be possible. She closed the notebook and returned to bed, but not to sleep. Instead, She pulled up the files on her tablet, recordings, photographs, documents she'd been collecting for 3 years. Her father thought she was just a silly child who spent too much time in her room. He had no idea she'd been documenting every crime, every cruelty, every piece of evidence that would eventually destroy him. The sun was rising by the time Emily finally closed her eyes, her plan perfectly in motion. Tomorrow she would play the innocent daughter, surprised and delighted to see Nadia. She would watch her father squirm as his ex-wife proved her superiority once again. She would plant more seeds of his destruction, while appearing to be nothing more than a lonely child seeking affection. Saturday arrived, with the kind of crisp autumn air that made the Connecticut countryside look like a postcard. Emily dressed carefully in the outfit Nadia had bought her 3 years ago, a deep blue dress that her father had tried to throw away. But Emily had hidden. She wanted Nadia to see she'd kept it, treasured it. She was sitting in the garden when Nadia arrived, deliberately positioned where she could seem surprised, but also where Nadia would see her first, not Lucas or Chloe, Emily. Nadia's voice was exactly as she remembered. Warm honey over steel strength. "Oh my goodness, look how you've grown." Emily let her carefully constructed walls drop for just a moment, becoming the child she might have been in a different life. She ran to Nadia, threw her arms around her waist, and for a heartbeat allowed herself to feel the maternal warmth she'd been denied for 3 years. "I missed you," she whispered, and meant it. Nadia held her tightly, and Emily felt the woman's surprise at how thin she'd become, how her designer clothes couldn't hide the sharp angles of a child who often forgot to eat because no one reminded her to. "Baby girl," Nadia murmured, and Emily heard the concern, the old protectiveness stirring. "Perfect, Emily." Chloe's sharp voice cut through the moment. "What are you doing?" "Let Miss Freeman work. You have your Mandarin lesson in an hour." "On a Saturday?" Nadia asked, her tone carefully neutral. "Lucas insists she maintain her schedule," Chloe said dismissively. "Discipline builds character, he says." Emily saw Nadia's jaw tighten, but her smile remained fixed. "Of course, Emily. It was wonderful to see you. Perhaps we can catch up later." "I'd like that," Emily said, letting hope color her voice, while internally noting that Nadia's protective instincts were already engaged. Another piece moved into position on her mental chessboard. The rest of the morning unfolded exactly as Emily had orchestrated. She watched from various vantage points as Nadia worked her magic, transforming the disaster into something spectacular. The woman commandeered the mansion staff with quiet authority, had new caterers arriving within hours, and somehow convinced the country club to discover they'd made an error, and the venue was actually available. But the best part was watching her father, when he finally emerged from his study at noon, saw Nadia directing operations in his home, and went absolutely rigid with rage. "What the hell is she doing here?" he snarled at Chloe, loud enough for several arriving vendors to hear. "Saving your engagement party," Nadia said calmly, not even looking up from her tablet. "Your fiancé hired me. If you have concerns, I suggest you discuss them with her. In the meantime, I have 48 hours to create magic from chaos. So, if you'll excuse me." She walked past him like he was furniture, leaving Lucas standing there with his mouth open and his face reddening. Emily recorded it all from the landing above, adding it to her collection. Chapter 3. Invisible Threads. The transformation of the Larson mansion into an engagement party venue worthy of society pages was nothing short of alchemy, and Emily watched it all unfold from her strategic hiding spots throughout the house. By Saturday evening, Nadia had worked her particular brand of magic. The cold, sterile mansion had been transformed into something from a dream. Thousands of fairy lights created a constellation across the ceiling of the grand ballroom. Silk, draping in cream and gold, softened the harsh modern edges of the space. The gardens, which Chloe had neglected and Lucas ignored, now bloomed with imported orchids and roses, their perfume mixing with the evening air to create an intoxicating atmosphere. Emily, dressed in her best behavior and a modest dove-gray dress that made her look younger than her 9 years, stationed herself where she could observe everything. She had cameras rolling in 3 different locations, all disguised as part of her school project on event planning, a lie her father had barely acknowledged with a dismissive wave. The guests began arriving at 7, and Emily noted with satisfaction that her carefully planted rumors had done their work. She could hear the whispers already. "Lucas's ex-wife is running the party. I heard there was some disaster with the original planning. Chloe must be either very confident or very stupid." But the real victory came when Ethan Caldwell arrived. Emily had sent him a personal invitation, forging her father's signature and adding a handwritten note. "Your presence would mean a great deal to the family, especially to young Emily, who speaks so highly of your charitable work." Ethan entered like a man who belonged everywhere and nowhere simultaneously, comfortable in his skin, but carrying a loneliness that Emily recognized, because she saw it in the mirror every day. His dark hair was slightly too long for fashion, his suit impeccable, but worn with the carelessness of someone who didn't need clothes to announce his worth. His eyes, brown and kind, immediately scanned the room and found Nadia. Emily watched him, watching her, saw the way his entire body oriented toward where Nadia stood, coordinating the cocktail service. She was wearing a professional but stunning midnight blue sheath dress, her natural hair styled in an elegant updo that showed off the graceful line of her neck. She looked like a queen managing her court, and Ethan Caldwell looked like a man seeing the sun after years of darkness. "Uncle Ethan," Emily called out, using the familiar title she'd never been given permission to use. Several heads turned, including her father's, his expression darkening at this breach of protocol, but Ethan smiled, a real smile, not the society version, and walked over to her. "Emily, how wonderful to see you. You look lovely tonight. Did you know Nadia planned all this?" Emily asked innocently, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "She saved the whole party. Chloe says she's a miracle worker. Is that so?" Ethan's eyes found Nadia again. "I'm not surprised. Miss Freeman has quite a reputation for excellence. You know her?" Emily pressed, playing the curious child. "We've crossed paths at various events," Ethan said carefully. "I'm a great admirer of her work." "Just her work?" Emily asked with the devastating honesty only children could deploy. Ethan actually colored slightly, and Emily felt a flutter of victory. Before he could answer, Nadia appeared. Having noticed their conversation, "Mr. Caldwell," she said professionally, though Emily caught the slight catch in her voice. "How kind of you to attend. Miss Freeman, the transformation is remarkable, though I understand that's your specialty, making beauty from difficult circumstances." Their eyes held for a moment too long, and Emily could practically feel the chemistry crackling between them. But Nadia, ever professional, simply nodded and turned to Emily. "Sweetheart, shouldn't you be with the other young guests? I believe there's a special children's area in the conservatory." "I'd rather stay with you," Emily said truthfully. "Father never notices where I am anyway." She saw the flash of concern in Nadia's eyes, the maternal instinct flaring. "Well, perhaps you could help me with something. I need someone to ensure the dessert presentation is perfect. Think you could be my assistant? Really?" Emily let excitement color her voice. "Oh, yes, I'd love to help." As they walked toward the kitchen, Ethan following at a discreet distance, Emily heard her father's voice cutting through the party noise. "Quite the performance," Lucas was saying to a group of his business associates, his voice carrying that particular tone of cruelty he'd perfected. "My ex-wife playing party planner. Though I suppose it's fitting. She always was better at appearances than substance." "Funny." One of the men, Mr. Takahashi, the Japanese investor, said coolly, "I was just thinking how substantial this event is. My wife is particularly impressed. She wants Miss Freeman's contact information for our anniversary celebration." Lucas's laugh was forced. "I'm sure Chloe could give you some recommendations for more appropriate planners. More appropriate than the woman who single-handedly saved your engagement party." Mrs. Takahashi had joined them, her tone deceptively mild. "How interesting. In Tokyo, we have a saying. The cherry blossom that blooms after the harsh winter is the most beautiful. Your ex-wife seems to have bloomed quite magnificently." Emily bit back a smile as she watched her father struggle for a response. But the best was yet to come. The dessert presentation was Nadia's masterpiece, a 7-tier cake that was less confection and more architecture, with sugarwork so delicate it looked like spun glass, surrounded by individual desserts that were miniature works of art. Emily stood beside Nadia as the cake was wheeled out, and she made sure to be looking at her father when his jaw dropped. "Ladies and gentlemen," Chloe announced, clearly reading from cards Nadia had prepared, "we want to thank you all for celebrating with us tonight. This magical evening wouldn't have been possible without the incredible talent of Nadia Freeman." The applause was thunderous. Emily watched her father's face cycle through emotions: anger, humiliation, and something else, fear. He was watching his social capital shift in real time, seeing how the crowd responded to Nadia versus how they responded to him. But the moment that would stay with Emily forever came during the dancing. The band had started playing, and couples moved onto the floor. Lucas and Chloe performed their rehearsed dance, all technical perfection without soul. Then other couples joined, and Emily watched Ethan approach Nadia, who was standing near the service entrance, still working despite the party being in full swing. "Would you honor me with a dance?" he asked quietly. "I'm working, Mr. Meditate." "Caldwell," Nadia responded, but Emily heard the longing in her voice. "One dance, he persisted gently. "You've created all this beauty. You should enjoy at least a moment of it." Nadia hesitated, then looked at Emily, who gave her an encouraging nod. "One dance," she agreed. They moved onto the floor, and the entire room seemed to hold its breath. Where Lucas and Chloe had been stiff and rehearsed, Nadia and Ethan moved like water, like they'd been dancing together their entire lives. He held her with careful respect, but his eyes devoured her with a hunger that was all the more powerful for being restrained. "They're beautiful together," someone whispered. "Like a fairy tale." Another voice agreed. "Makes you wonder what kind of fool would let a woman like that go." A third added, loud enough for Lucas to hear. Emily pulled out her phone, recording not just the dance, but her father's face as he watched his ex-wife outshine him at his own engagement party. She saw the moment he realized what everyone else was thinking, that he'd traded a diamond for glass, that his cruelty had cost him something precious. But more importantly, she saw Chloe watching, too, saw the younger woman's face tighten with jealousy and insecurity. Seeds of doubt, Emily thought. Water them carefully and watch them grow. The dance ended, and Ethan and Nadia separated with visible reluctance. But as Ethan walked Nadia back to her station, his hand briefly touched hers, just a brush of fingers. But Emily saw Nadia's breath catch, saw her touch that hand with her other one as if to hold the sensation. The rest of the party proceeded flawlessly. But Emily noticed the shift in dynamic. Guests sought out Nadia to compliment her work. Business cards were exchanged. Chloe grew increasingly sullen as person after person praised the ex-wife's superiority. And Lucas drank heavily. Near midnight, when the party was winding down, Emily found Nadia on the terrace, finally taking a moment to breathe. The woman looked tired but triumphant, and Emily felt a surge of fierce pride. "You were amazing," Emily said softly, coming to stand beside her. "Thank you, sweetheart. You were quite the helper tonight." "Nadia." Emily let vulnerability creep into her voice. "Do you ever think about before, when you lived here?" Nadia's expression softened. "Sometimes, I think about you a lot, actually. I've wondered if you were okay, if you were happy." "I'm not," Emily said simply, honestly. "Happy. I mean, Father doesn't. He doesn't see me. Not really. And Chloe thinks I'm an inconvenience. Sometimes I feel like a ghost in my own house." "Oh, baby girl." Nadia turned to face her fully, and Emily saw tears threatening in her eyes. "You are not a ghost. You are a brilliant, beautiful child who deserves to be seen and loved and celebrated every single day." "You saw me," Emily whispered. "You always saw me." "I still do," Nadia said firmly. "And Emily, if you ever need anything at all, you have my number now. Use it." Emily nodded, filing away this promise. She would definitely use it, though not in the way Nadia expected. A movement caught her eye, and she saw her father standing in the doorway, watching them. His expression was unreadable, but Emily recognized the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands clenched at his sides. He was seeing his daughter choose his ex-wife over him, and it was eating him alive. "Emily," he said coldly. "Bed, now." "Yes, father," Emily said obediently. But before she left, she hugged Nadia tightly, whispering, "Thank you for coming back." As she passed her father in the doorway, she heard him hiss at Nadia, "Stay away from my daughter. She's the one who sought me out." "Lucas," Nadia replied calmly. "Perhaps if you paid her any attention, she wouldn't need to seek maternal affection from someone you discarded. You know nothing about my relationship with my daughter. I know she's lost weight. I know she's lonely. I know she's desperately seeking approval you're too narcissistic to give. And I know that one day she's going to be old enough to choose who she wants in her life. You might want to think about that." Emily paused at the top of the stairs, recording every word on her phone. Her father's response was predictably cruel. "She's my blood. She'll always choose me. Blood doesn't make family, Lucas. Love does. And you don't know how to love anyone but yourself." The slap was sharp and sudden. Emily gasped, nearly dropping her phone. But she kept recording as Nadia stood there, her cheek reddening, her expression not shocked, but sadly unsurprised. "There he is," Nadia said quietly. "The real Lucas Larson. The one who hits women when they speak truths he doesn't want to hear." "You'll say nothing about this," Lucas snarled. "No one would believe you anyway." "I don't need anyone to believe me," Nadia said, walking past him with her head high. "You just proved everything I needed to know. You haven't changed at all." After they were both gone, Emily saved the video to her encrypted cloud storage, labeling it evidence file number 47. Assault. Her father had just made a critical error. He'd shown his true face, and Emily had caught it all. Tomorrow, she would begin the next phase. She would reach out to Clara, her aunt, who had always disapproved of Lucas's treatment of women. She would plant more seeds with Chloe about Lucas's temper, and she would ensure that Ethan Caldwell received an anonymous tip about a certain investment opportunity that would put him in direct competition with her father's biggest deal. But tonight she allowed herself one moment of pure feeling. She touched her own cheek where Nadia had kissed her goodnight weeks ago, the last time she'd felt truly loved. "Soon, Mom Nadia," she whispered to the darkness. "Soon you'll be free of him forever, and so will I." Chapter 4. The Letters Never Sent. Monday morning arrived with rain beating against the windows of the Larson mansion, and Emily used the cover of the storm to execute her most dangerous mission yet. Her father had left for his office at dawn, still nursing his rage from Saturday night and a considerable hangover. Chloe was at her Pilates class, then her standing appointment at the med spa, a routine that never varied, and gave Emily exactly 4 hours of guaranteed access to her father's study. The study was supposed to be impenetrable. Lucas had installed a biometric lock, security cameras, and even a silent alarm system. What he hadn't counted on was his 9-year-old daughter having spent the last 2 years studying his every move, recording his passwords with hidden cameras and lifting his fingerprints from glasses to create a silicon duplicate that would fool the scanner. Emily slipped inside at 9:17 a.m., her heart pounding, but her hands steady. The room still smelled like him, expensive cologne failing to mask the underlying scent of whiskey and cigars. The walls were lined with his trophies, photos of him with politicians, framed magazine covers featuring his real estate empire, and notably, not a single picture of his daughter. She went straight to the hidden safe behind the portrait of his father, another cruel man who'd taught Lucas that power was better than love. The combination was his wedding anniversary with Nadia, a detail that made Emily's stomach turn. Even in his cruelty, he couldn't let her go completely. Inside the safe were the predictable items: cash, bonds, property deeds, and a .38 revolver that Emily photographed but didn't touch. But there, in a leather portfolio at the very back, were the letters, dozens of them, all addressed to Nadia. All unmailed. The earliest was dated just after their wedding, the latest from last month. Emily's hands trembled as she photographed each one, reading her father's words with growing nausea and rage. "My darling Nadia," one began, "I hit you again today. You'll never read this, but I need to write it. I need to confess that every time I hurt you, I feel powerful for a moment, then hollow forever after. You're everything I'm not: warm, genuine, capable of real love. I destroy you because I can't be you, because your light makes my darkness unbearable." Another, from the week before, he'd served her with divorce papers. "I'm going to leave you with nothing. It's already in motion. But know that taking everything from you won't fill this emptiness. You'll rebuild because that's who you are. You'll rise, and I'll watch from my cold tower, surrounded by people who fear me but don't love me, knowing I had love and murdered it with my own hands." The most recent one made Emily's blood run cold. "Saw you at the gala. You were magnificent. I wanted to kneel at your feet and beg forgiveness. Instead, I humiliated you again. It's all I know how to do. Emily looks more like you every day, acts like you. Sometimes I hate her for it. Sometimes I hate her for being the proof that you existed in my life, that I had something real and destroyed it. I'm going to destroy her, too. It's what I do." Emily photographed everything. Her young mind tried to process the pathology of a man who knew he was a monster, but chose to remain one. These letters weren't love. They were the self-pitying confessions of an abuser who wanted credit for feeling bad about his abuse while continuing to perpetrate it. She was so absorbed that she almost missed the sound of footsteps in the hallway. Almost. Moving with practiced efficiency, Emily returned everything to its exact position, closed the safe, and slipped behind the heavy curtains just as the door opened. It wasn't Lucas or Chloe. It was Clara Larson, Lucas's older sister. Clara was everything Lucas wasn't: kind, principled, and strong in a way that didn't require cruelty. She'd been the only family member to maintain contact with Nadia after the divorce, though she had to do it secretly. She stood in the doorway for a moment, then entered and went straight to Lucas's desk. "I know you're here, Emily," she said quietly. "I saw you on the security feed from my phone. Don't worry, I deleted it." Emily emerged from behind the curtain, her chin raised despite her racing heart. "Aunt Clara, what were you looking for, sweetheart?" Emily considered lying, but something in Clara's eyes stopped her. Evidence. Evidence of what he really is, what he's done, what he's planning to do. Clara sat down heavily in Lucas's chair, looking older than her 42 years. "You know, don't you, about all of it?" "I know he's a monster," Emily said simply. "I know he hurt Nadia. I know he's stealing from his investors. I know about the offshore accounts, the bribed officials, The women he's paid to keep quiet. I know everything. My God. Clara breathed. You're 9 years old. Age doesn't matter when you're fighting for survival, Emily replied, sounding decades older than her years. He's going to destroy me, Aunt Clara. He wrote it in a letter. He hates me because I remind him of her. Because I'm proof that he's capable of creating something, but not of loving it. Clara's eyes filled with tears. Come here, sweetheart. Emily went to her, allowing herself to be held for just a moment. Clara smelled like lavender and safety, and Emily wished desperately that she could just be a child in her aunt's arms. But she couldn't afford that luxury. I'm going to stop him, Emily whispered. I'm going to save Nadia, save myself, save everyone he's hurt. How? I've been collecting evidence for 3 years. Videos, recordings, documents. I have enough to destroy him. But I need to do it right. I need allies. Clara pulled back to look at her niece's face. You have one? What do you need from me? Access to the family trust documents. And I need you to be ready to take custody when the time comes. Emily, this is dangerous. If Lucas finds out, he won't. I'm very careful. And I'm very patient. Emily moved to the window, watching the rain streak down the glass. There's going to be an event soon, a big one. The charity auction for the museum. Nadia will be planning it, and everyone important will be there. That's when I'm going to reveal everything. That's in 3 months. I know. I need time to gather the rest of what I need, and I need to make sure Nadia is protected. He's escalating. He hit her Saturday night. He what? Clara's voice was sharp. I have it on video. He slapped her on the terrace after the party. She didn't even flinch. She's so used to it that she didn't even flinch. Clara stood up, pacing to the window. Our father was the same way. Did you know that he hit our mother? Hit us. Lucas learned that power meant violence, that love was weakness. I tried to protect him from it, but instead he became it. You're nothing like him, Emily said firmly. Neither am I. We choose who we become, don't we? Yes, sweetheart, we do. They stood together in silence for a moment. Then Clara asked, what about Ethan Caldwell? I saw how he looked at Nadia at the party. Emily smiled for the first time that morning. He's been in love with her for over a year. He's a good man. I've researched him thoroughly. No scandals, no cruelty. Just a man who built his fortune through innovation and treats people with respect. He could make her happy, but she won't let herself be loved while Lucas still has power over her. She's too proud, too wounded. That's why I have to destroy him completely. Only when he's powerless can she be free to choose happiness. Clara touched Emily's face gently. You're mine. You know that. The moment this is over, you're mine. I've already got the lawyers preparing the papers. I know, Emily said softly. I'm counting on it. A car door slammed outside, and both of them froze. Chloe was home early. Go, Clara said urgently. I'll handle her. Emily slipped out through the service corridor, her heart pounding as she heard Chloe's shrill voice, demanding to know why Clara was there. She made it to her room just as Chloe started up the stairs and quickly opened her school books, assuming the position of a child doing homework. Her phone buzzed a text from an unknown number, but Emily recognized the handwriting in the attached photo immediately. It was another letter, this one in Nadia's hand. Ethan, I can't accept your dinner invitation. You're a good man, and I'm still too broken. Lucas took things from me I'm still trying to find. I won't subject you to my damage. Please understand. N. Below it, Ethan had written, I'll wait as long as it takes. You're not broken. You're healing. There's a difference. E. Emily realized Ethan had sent this to her deliberately, trusting a 9-year-old with his vulnerability. She texted back from her encrypted phone. Keep writing to her. She needs to know someone sees her as whole, not broken. The monster will fall soon. Be ready to catch her when he does. His response was immediate. Who is this? Someone who loves her, too. Someone who's going to set her free. Trust me. The daughter. Emily didn't respond further, but she knew he'd figured it out. Smart man. He'd be good for Nadia. That evening at dinner, Lucas was in rare form, 3 drinks in before the first course, radiating menace like a nuclear reactor approaching meltdown. Clara was here today, he said, his eyes fixed on Emily. In my study, I was showing her the new security system, Chloe said quickly. She wanted to see how it worked. Did she? Lucas's voice was silky with threat. And you, Emily? What were you doing today? Homework, Emily said calmly, meeting his gaze steadily. Mathematics and French. Would you like to see? Don't be smart with me, little girl. I'm not being smart, Father. I'm being honest, though I understand you might not recognize the difference. The silence was deafening. Chloe's fork clattered against her plate. Lucas stood slowly, his face darkening. Go to your room. May I take my dinner? Go. Emily stood with dignity, exactly as she'd seen Nadia do 1,000 times. Good evening, Father. Chloe. As she walked up the stairs, she heard Chloe whisper, She's just like her. I know, Lucas replied, and the hatred in his voice was pure poison. That's the problem. In her room, Emily pulled out the letters she'd photographed and began composing an email to 3 journalists she'd been cultivating relationships with under various false identities. She didn't send it, not yet, but when the time came, the world would read Lucas Larson's confessions in his own handwriting. She looked at the photo of Nadia she kept hidden in her desk drawer, the only motherly smile she'd known, and whispered, "Almost there. Mom Nadia, almost free." Chapter 5. When Kings Fall. The Metropolitan Business Alliance's annual gala was the crown jewel of the city's social calendar, and this year, Nadia Freeman wasn't just planning it, she was being honored as Entrepreneur of the Year. Emily had orchestrated this, too, though no one would ever know, through careful manipulation of online voting, strategic emails from concerned citizens praising Nadia's work, and a particularly glowing recommendation she'd ghostwritten from the mayor's wife. Sent from a spoofed email address, she'd ensured Nadia would be standing on that stage, triumphant. While her father watched from below, the November evening was crystalline, cold enough to require furs and wraps, the kind of weather that made the city shimmer like a jewel box. Emily had convinced Clara to bring her as her +1, claiming she needed to attend for a school project on successful women in business. Lucas couldn't refuse his sister without looking petty, though his jaw had clenched when he heard Emily would be there. The ballroom of the Ritz-Carlton had been transformed into Nadia's vision of modern Versailles, mirrors and gold, but softened with thousands of white roses and hanging crystals that caught the light like frozen fireworks. It was opulent but tasteful, commanding but not desperate, everything Lucas tried to be but wasn't. Emily positioned herself strategically near the sound system, her phone ready to record everything. She'd also placed tiny cameras at 3 different angles earlier that day during the school tour she'd arranged with the hotel manager. Tonight would yield evidence she couldn't even predict yet. Lucas arrived with Chloe, who wore a red gown so tight. Emily wondered how she could breathe. They made their entrance like royalty, but Emily noticed immediately that something was off. Several of Lucas's usual associates barely acknowledged him. The mayor, who normally would have rushed over, simply nodded from across the room. "What's happening?" Emily asked Clara innocently. Clara lowered her voice. "The Takahashi deal fell through. Your father was supposed to secure the waterfront development project with their investment, but somehow another buyer swooped in at the last minute with a better offer." Emily hid her smile. The other buyer was a shell company she'd created using some of Lucas's own hidden assets. The ownership traced through such a complex web that it would take forensic accountants months to unravel. She'd essentially made him bid against himself and lose. Ethan Caldwell entered alone, as always, but his eyes immediately found Nadia, who was directing the final touches near the stage. Tonight she wore an emerald green gown that made her skin glow like burnished bronze, her hair in a complex updo that showcased the elegant line of her neck. She looked like African royalty, and Ethan stared like a man witnessing divinity. "Mr. Caldwell," Emily said, approaching him with calculated innocence. "You look lost." He smiled down at her, and Emily saw why Nadia might eventually love him. His kindness was genuine, reaching his eyes. "Miss Emily, I'm not lost, just appreciating the artwork. She is beautiful, isn't she?" Emily said, deliberately misunderstanding. "I mean, Nadia outdid herself." "Yes," he agreed softly. "She certainly did. You should tell her. She doesn't hear it enough that she's appreciated." Ethan studied the child's face. "You're very protective of her. Someone has to be." "She protects everyone else, but forgets herself." "And your father?" Emily's expression hardened just enough for him to see the steel beneath the child. "My father destroys beautiful things. It's his nature. But nature can be overcome by choice, don't you think?" Before Ethan could respond, the lights dimmed, and the evening's program began. Emily watched her father's face as the president of the Business Alliance took the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin our dinner service, I want to address some unfortunate news. As many of you have heard, there have been serious allegations of financial irregularities concerning one of our members. The Alliance takes such matters seriously, and pending investigation, we've had to revoke certain memberships and privileges." Lucas's face went white, then red. Chloe grabbed his arm as whispers rippled through the crowd. Emily kept her expression neutral, but inside she was electric with victory. The anonymous tip about his embezzlement, complete with documented evidence, had reached the right people at exactly the right time. However, the president continued, "Tonight is about celebrating excellence, integrity, and innovation. No one embodies these qualities more than our Entrepreneur of the Year, Nadia Freeman." The applause was thunderous. Nadia looked genuinely shocked as she made her way to the stage, and Emily felt a surge of pure love for this woman, who'd shown her what strength looked like. "Thank you," Nadia began, her voice clear and strong. "This honor means more than you know. 3 years ago, I lost everything. My marriage, my home, my sense of self. I was told I would never amount to anything without my husband's name and connections." Her eyes found Lucas in the crowd, and Emily saw her father shrink slightly. "But I learned something vital. When you've lost everything, you're free to become anything. I rebuilt not just my business, but myself. Every event I plan, every celebration I coordinate, is a testament to resurrection, to the phoenix rising, not in spite of the ashes, but because of them." More applause. But Nadia wasn't finished. "I want to dedicate this award to every woman who's been told she's not enough, to every person who's had to rebuild from ruins, and especially to a young girl who reminds me daily that strength isn't about never falling, it's about how you rise." Her eyes found Emily, and Emily felt tears threatening for the first time in years. She touched her hand to her heart, and Nadia mirrored the gesture. That's when Lucas exploded. "This is ridiculous," he shouted, standing abruptly. "This woman is a fraud. She built her business on my contacts, my reputation. She's nothing but a—" "Mr. Larson," the president's voice was arctic, "you're no longer a member of this organization. I'm going to have to ask you to leave." "What? This is insane. I've been a member for 15 years, and in those 15 years, you've allegedly embezzled over $3 million from joint ventures. The FBI will want to speak with you on Monday. I suggest you enjoy your weekend." The security guards were already moving. Chloe was backing away from Lucas like he was radioactive. And everyone was watching his spectacular fall. "This is her doing." Lucas pointed at Nadia. "She's poisoning you all against me." "No, Lucas," a new voice said. Emily turned to see Mr. Takahashi standing. "Your destruction is entirely self-made. Miss Freeman has been nothing but professional. You, however, tried to bribe my associates, forge my signature, and steal from my company. We have it all documented." More gasps. Emily made sure her cameras were catching every angle. "As do I," another voice added. "Mrs. Harper, the mayor's wife, you attempted to blackmail my husband with fabricated photos. We have the forensic analysis proving they're fake." "And I," Ethan said, standing slowly, his presence commanding attention, "you tried to sabotage my acquisition of the waterfront property by spreading lies about environmental concerns. Fortunately, the EPA cleared everything yesterday. It was an avalanche, each revelation building on the last." Emily watched her father's world crumble in real time, saw the exact moment he realized he'd been outmaneuvered not by one person, but by everyone he'd wronged. "Emily," he said suddenly, his eyes finding his daughter, tell them, this is all lies." Emily stood slowly, and the room seemed to hold its breath. This 9-year-old child commanded attention like someone triple her age. "I can't lie for you, Father," she said clearly. "I have recordings of you admitting to everything they're saying. I have documents you thought you'd destroyed. I have videos of you hurting people, including Nadia." He started toward her, but Ethan and 3 other men stepped between them. "I'd think very carefully about your next move, Larson," Ethan said quietly, dangerously. "She's my daughter." "No," Emily said, her voice carrying across the silent ballroom. "I'm Nadia's daughter, in every way that matters. You're just the man whose DNA I carry, a biological accident I'll spend my life overcoming." The words hit him like physical blows. He stood there, swaying slightly, his empire in ruins, his daughter rejecting him publicly, his ex-wife standing triumphant on the stage above him. "Security," the president said firmly. "Please escort Mr. Larson out." As the guards approached, Lucas made one last desperate play. "Chloe, tell them we're leaving." Chloe looked at him, then at the room full of powerful people who'd just rejected him, then at her own future disappearing. "I don't know you," she said coldly, removing her engagement ring and dropping it on the floor. "I never did." She walked away, her heels clicking like a countdown to his complete isolation. Lucas was escorted out in full view of everyone, but not before he turned back one more time. His eyes found Emily, and what she saw there should have frightened her. Pure, undiluted hatred. "This isn't over," he mouthed. Emily smiled, an expression far too knowing for a child. "Yes, it is," she mouthed back. After he was gone, the room erupted in confused conversation. Nadia had come down from the stage and was moving toward Emily. But Ethan reached the child first. "Are you all right?" he asked gently. "I'm free," Emily said simply. "We both are." Nadia reached them then, and without hesitation, pulled Emily into her arms. "Baby girl, what you did." "What I did was overdue," Emily said, her voice muffled against Nadia's dress. "He hurt you. He hurt so many people. Someone had to stop him. But you're 9 years old. Age doesn't matter when you're fighting monsters." Emily pulled back to look at Nadia's face. You taught me that every time you stood tall when he tried to break you. You taught me that. Chapter 6. The Garden of Truth. The memorial garden dedication was scheduled for the last Sunday in November, when the autumn leaves created a tapestry of gold and crimson against the gray Connecticut sky. Nadia had poured her heart into every detail. Emily had known about this event for months. It was Nadia's most personal project, a garden dedicated to her late mother, Aisha Freeman, on the grounds of the hospice where she'd spent her final days. What Emily hadn't expected was for her father to know about it too, or for him to plan his cruelest attack. Yet, since his public humiliation 3 weeks ago, Lucas had been spiraling. The FBI had frozen his assets, pending investigation. His business partners had abandoned him. Even his country club had quietly suggested he might be happier elsewhere. But a wounded predator was the most dangerous kind, and Emily knew he would strike back. She'd intercepted his emails, his password remained pathetically predictable, and discovered his plan. Destroy the memorial service, humiliate Nadia at her most vulnerable moment, and use it to fuel a narrative that she was unstable and vindictive. Ammunition for the custody battle he was planning to wage over Emily. But Emily had plans of her own. The morning of the dedication dawned crisp and bright. Emily had stayed with Clara the night before, claiming she felt unsafe at home with her father's increasingly erratic behavior. It wasn't a lie. Lucas had taken to drinking heavily and raging at shadows. And Chloe had moved out entirely, taking her jewelry and leaving her engagement ring in the toilet. Emily dressed carefully in the navy dress Nadia had given her years ago, now a bit short, but still precious. She pinned a white rose to her collar, Aisha's favorite flower, according to the research she'd done. You sure you want to go? Clara asked, concern evident in her voice. If Lucas shows up, he will, Emily said calmly, but I'll be ready. They arrived at the hospice grounds early. Nadia had transformed the space into something magical. A circular garden with winding paths, each section representing a different aspect of her mother's life. The nurse's corner with healing herbs, the teacher's grove with benches for reading, the mother's heart at the center with a fountain that sang softly in the morning air. Nadia was there already, arranging the final touches. She wore a simple black dress with an African kente cloth stole, honoring both her mourning and her heritage. When she saw Emily, her face softened. You came, she said softly. You needed me here, Emily replied simply, and I have something for you. She pulled out a small leather journal, worn with age. I found this in Father's safe. It's your mother's. He must have taken it when he threw out your things. Nadia's hands trembled as she took the journal. My God, I thought it was lost forever. This has her last words, her letters to me. Tears streamed down her face. Emily, how did you? It doesn't matter how. What matters is, it's back where it belongs. Ethan arrived then, and Emily noticed he'd brought an entire team of discreet security. Smart man. He'd sensed trouble, too. Miss Freeman, he said gently, the space is beautiful. Your mother would be proud. Thank you for coming, Nadia said, wiping her tears. You didn't have to. Yes, I did, he said simply. You shouldn't face this alone. More people began arriving. Nurses who'd cared for Aisha, families whose loved ones had been comforted by her kindness, community members who remembered her service, and then, like a storm cloud crossing the sun, Lucas appeared. He looked terrible, unshaven, his suit wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. But he'd brought reinforcements, a photographer, someone who looked like a reporter, and his lawyer. How touching, he said loudly, his voice carrying across the gathered crowd. My ex-wife playing the grieving daughter. Tell me, Nadia, did you mention to these people how you abandoned your mother to chase after my money? That's a lie, Nadia said quietly but firmly. Is it? I have records showing you missed her treatments to attend my business dinners. You chose diamonds over your dying mother. Emily felt rage building in her chest, but then she heard another voice, unexpected and powerful. That's enough, Lucas. It was Dr. Linda Carter, the hospice director, a small woman with an iron spine. I was Aisha's primary physician, she continued. Nadia never missed a single treatment. In fact, she often slept in the chair beside her mother's bed, still in her evening gown from whatever event you had demanded she attend. She would rush here between your social obligations, holding her mother's hand through chemotherapy, while you texted her about being late to return. That's not, Lucas snarled. I have the visitor logs, Dr. Carter said coldly. Every single visit. Would you like me to read them aloud? The 15th of October, 2:47 a.m. Nadia arrives, still in formal wear. The 16th of October, she doesn't leave for 36 hours straight. The 17th of October. Stop, Lucas interrupted, but others were speaking now. A nurse. She paid for experimental treatments out of her own savings. Money she'd hidden because you monitored all her spending. A patient's daughter. She held my mother's hand, too, when her own mother was sleeping. She comforted strangers while you texted her threats about divorce if she didn't come home. The reporter Lucas had brought was scribbling frantically. But not the story Lucas had planned. "This is an ambush," Lucas's lawyer said. "We're leaving." "No," Emily said, stepping forward. "You came here to destroy something beautiful, Father. At least have the courage to stay for the whole show." She pulled out her phone and connected it to the portable speaker she'd hidden earlier. Suddenly, Lucas's voice filled the garden. "Your mother's dying. Good. Maybe when she's dead, you'll stop using her as an excuse to avoid your real duties. You're my wife, not her nurse. Let the professionals handle it." Then Nadia's voice, broken with tears. "She's my mother, Lucas. She's dying. We all die, Nadia. The question is whether we matter while we're alive. And right now, you're making me look bad by constantly leaving events. Choose me or her." The recording ended. The silence was deafening. That's edited," Lucas stammered. "That's taken out of context. Here's the full conversation," Emily said calmly, preparing to play more. "Enough," Ethan said, his voice carrying quiet authority. "Larson, you've done enough damage. Leave now." "You can't tell me." "Actually, I can. I now own this hospice. I purchased it yesterday." "You're trespassing." Lucas's face cycled through emotions. Rage, humiliation, desperation. "Emily, you're coming with me." "No, Father. I'm not." "You're my daughter. Biologically, yes, but family is more than blood. It's love, sacrifice, presence. Nadia taught me that. She was more of a parent to me in 3 years than you've been in 9. I'll drag you to court, where you'll have to explain the bruises on my arms from when you grabbed me last week. The recording of you saying you wish I'd never been born. Problem, the evidence of you planning to send me to Switzerland to get rid of the problem." Each word was a nail in his coffin. The reporter was recording everything. The photographer was capturing his unraveling. "You poisonous little." He moved toward her, but suddenly found himself face to face with not just Ethan, but a wall of people. Nurses, visitors, strangers who'd formed a protective barrier around the child. "Touch her," Ethan said very quietly, "and I will end you. Not financially. You've already done that yourself, but I will ensure you never walk without looking over your shoulder again." Something in his tone must have penetrated Lucas's rage because he stepped back. "This isn't over," he said to Nadia. "He'll destroy you." "No, Lucas," Nadia said, and her voice was almost pitying. "You'll try, you'll fail, and eventually you'll realize that your destruction was always internal. You carry your own hell with you." She turned away from him, dismissing him as utterly as one might dismiss a shadow when stepping into the light. "The dedication will begin now," she announced to the gathered crowd. "Those who wish to celebrate Aisha Freeman's life and legacy are welcome to stay." Lucas stood there for another moment. A king without a kingdom, a father without a family, a man without a soul worth saving. Then he turned and walked away, his lawyer and hired witnesses trailing after him like reluctant shadows. The dedication proceeded beautifully after that. Nadia spoke about her mother with love and grace, reading from the recovered journal. Others shared memories. Even Emily spoke, talking about how Aisha's granddaughter of the heart was carrying on her legacy of strength. As the sun set, painting the garden in shades of gold and rose, Ethan approached Nadia where she stood by the fountain. "It's beautiful," he said softly. "She would be proud. She would have liked you," Nadia said unexpectedly. "She always said I should find someone who saw my strength as beauty, not a threat." "And do you think he hesitated? Do you think you might let someone see that strength up close?" Nadia looked at him for a long moment. "I'm still healing, Ethan. Still finding pieces of myself I thought were lost forever." "I know," he said gently. "I'm not asking you to be healed. I'm asking if you might let someone walk beside you while you heal." Their hands were resting on the fountain's edge, and slowly, so slowly it might have been accidental, their fingers touched just barely, just enough for Emily to see from where she watched. "Maybe," Nadia whispered. "Maybe." Chapter 7. Beneath the mask. The engagement party that Lucas had insisted on throwing, despite losing Chloe, was perhaps the most spectacular example of delusional grandeur the Connecticut social scene had ever witnessed. It was 2 weeks before Christmas, and Lucas had somehow convinced a young socialite named Sophia Bennett, 23, desperate for status and heir to a pharmaceutical fortune, to accept his proposal after knowing him for exactly 18 days. The speed was desperate, the motive transparent. Lucas needed to appear stable for his upcoming court battles and frozen asset hearings. Emily had been ordered to attend, dressed in a ridiculous pink confection that made her look like a demented birthday cake. She'd complied, knowing this would be the perfect stage for the next phase of her plan. The party was at the Fairmont Hotel's ballroom. Lucas couldn't use his mansion, which was being assessed by federal investigators. He'd hired the most expensive everything, trying to project wealth he no longer possessed. The effect was gaudy rather than elegant, desperate rather than confident, but the master stroke of delusion. He'd hired Nadia's company to plan it. Of course, he hadn't hired her directly. He'd gone through Sophia, who'd gone through her mother, who'd insisted on the best. Without realizing the irony, Nadia had accepted, and Emily knew exactly why. This was Nadia's chance to show everyone definitively who had truly won. The ballroom was exquisite in its restraint. Where Lucas had demanded opulence, Nadia had delivered elegance. Where he'd wanted to scream wealth, she'd whispered class. It was so perfectly not what he'd wanted, while being exactly what he'd asked for, that Emily had to bite her lip to keep from laughing. "Champagne, miss, a server asked." "Sparkling cider, please," Emily replied, recognizing him as one of Ethan's security team in disguise. The man winked and handed her a glass, whispering, "Your aunt is by the terrace. Mr. Caldwell has the exits covered." Emily nodded, grateful for the protection. She'd shared her plans with Clara and Ethan, knowing tonight would be explosive. The guests were arriving, a B-list crowd. As the A-listers had all declined, the mayor had sent his deputy, the business elite had sent their assistants. It was a room full of people who were there for the spectacle, not the celebration. Lucas stood near the entrance, Sophia on his arm. She was pretty in a fragile way, like spun glass that would shatter at the first real pressure. Her eyes darted nervously, and Emily noticed her flinch when Lucas's grip on her arm tightened. Another victim in the making. Emily positioned herself near the stage, her phone ready. She'd prepared a presentation, weeks of work compressed into 10 minutes of devastating truth. The AV system was already queued up, thanks to a sympathetic technician who'd lost his retirement savings to one of Lucas's schemes. "Ladies and gentlemen," Lucas's voice boomed over the microphone, "welcome to our celebration of new beginnings. More like desperate endings," someone muttered, loud enough for others to hear. Lucas's jaw tightened, but he continued, "I want to thank you all for joining us, and especially my beautiful bride-to-be, Sophia, who has brought light back into my life after a period of difficulty." Emily almost snorted. Difficulty? That's what he called federal investigation and social exile. "I also want to address the elephant in the room," Lucas continued, and Emily tensed. "My ex-wife's company planned this event. I want everyone to know this was Sophia's choice, and I support it. I harbor no ill will toward Nadia. In fact, I wish her well in her endeavors." The condescension in his tone was thick enough to choke on. That's when Nadia entered. She wasn't supposed to be there. The event planner typically didn't attend as a guest, but she walked in like she owned the space, wearing a black gown that made her look like vengeance personified. Beside her, Ethan Caldwell cut an equally impressive figure. The room fell silent. "Lucas," Nadia said pleasantly, "congratulations on your engagement. 4th time's the charm, they say." "It's my 3rd engagement," Lucas said through gritted teeth. "Oh, are we not counting Margaret? The one you were engaged to while married to me?" "My mistake." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Sophia's face went white. "That's a lie. I have the receipts," Nadia said calmly. "Literally. Tiffany's, March 2019. 2-carat diamond charged to the joint account. I always wondered why we were hemorrhaging money. This is neither the time nor—" "You're right," Nadia agreed. "Your daughter has something she'd like to say." All eyes turned to Emily. She walked to the microphone with measured steps, her small stature somehow commanding in its dignity. "Good evening," she began, her voice clear and steady. "My name is Emily Larson, and I'm 9 years old. My father thinks I'm a prop, something to parade when convenient and ignore when not. But I've been watching, I've been listening, and I've been recording." The screens around the room flickered to life. The first video showed Lucas in his study, drunk, raging at Chloe. "The brat's not even mine, probably." Nadia was always whoring around, but the DNA test was inconclusive, so I'm stuck with her. Emily's voice continued over the video. "The DNA test wasn't inconclusive. He never took one. He just didn't want to know for sure, because then he'd lose leverage." The next clip. Lucas on the phone with his lawyer. "I don't care if the kid ends up in foster care. Once I marry Sophia and get access to her trust fund, I'm shipping Emily off to boarding school in Switzerland, or maybe military school. Somewhere she can't embarrass me." Sophia's hand flew to her mouth. More clips followed in rapid succession. Lucas admitting to bribing city officials. Lucas laughing about hiding money in offshore accounts. Lucas describing his plan to seduce Sophia for her money. Lucas calling his own daughter that thing, and the mistake, but the final clip was the worst. It was from last week. Lucas speaking to someone on the phone. Once I get Sophia's money, I'll destroy Nadia completely. I'll buy every venue in the city and blacklist her. I'll spread rumors about her being unstable. I'll make sure she never works again. And then, when she's at her lowest, I'll offer to take her back. She'll be so broken, she'll actually say yes. And then I'll have the pleasure of destroying her all over again. But slowly this time, very slowly. The ballroom was dead silent. Emily looked directly at her father. You taught me that power is everything. But you were wrong. Truth is everything. And the truth is, you're not a king, or a businessman, or even a father. You're just a small, cruel man who mistakes fear for respect and control for love. You little Lucas started toward her, but found his path blocked by not just Ethan, but half a dozen other men. I'd stop right there. A new voice said. FBI agent Daniel Carter walked in, badge visible. Lucas Larson, you're under arrest for embezzlement, wire fraud, bribery, and tax evasion. You can't. This is my engagement party. Was? Sophia said, yanking off her ring and throwing it at him. You sick bastard. You are using me. Everyone uses everyone. Sweetheart, Lucas snarled. Grow up. As the agents cuffed him, Lucas's eyes found Emily one last time. You've destroyed your own father. You'll regret this. No, Emily said calmly. I freed myself from a monster. The only thing I regret is that it took me 9 years to be brave enough. She's mine, Lucas shouted as they dragged him toward the door. She's my blood, my property. Actually, Clara stepped forward with a document. She's not. This is an emergency custody order. Given your arrest and the evidence of abuse and neglect, custody has been transferred to me, effective immediately. The last thing Emily saw of her father was his face, twisted with rage and disbelief, as the FBI led him away in handcuffs, while 300 of Connecticut's elite watched. The room erupted in chaos, but Emily felt only calm. She walked to Nadia, who pulled her into a fierce embrace. Are you okay, baby girl? I'm free, Emily whispered. We're both free. Ethan stood protective nearby, and Emily saw him touch Nadia's shoulder gently, a gesture of support, not possession. Thank you, Nadia said to him softly, for being here. For everything, always, he replied simply. Chapter 8. The Gathering Storm. The federal courthouse in Hartford was a monument to justice, all marble columns and Lady Liberty statues, but to Emily, it felt like a gladiator arena where the final battle would be fought. It was January now, 2 weeks into the new year, and Lucas's criminal trial was set to begin in 3 days. But first came the custody hearing. Lucas's desperate attempt to regain control of Emily, claiming his arrest was a misunderstanding and that his sister had kidnapped his daughter. Emily sat in the family court waiting room between Clara and Nadia, her hands steady despite the storm raging in her chest. She dressed carefully, a simple navy dress that made her look young and vulnerable, the opposite of the warrior she truly was. This was strategy. Judges sympathized with children, not 9-year-old masterminds. You don't have to testify, Clara said gently. The videos are enough. No, Emily said firmly. He needs to hear it from me. The court needs to hear it from me, and I need to say it. Nadia squeezed her hand. We're right here with you, no matter what. Ethan entered the waiting room, having just come from a meeting with the prosecution. His expression was grim. Lucas has hired Thompson, he said. Clara cursed under her breath. Victor Thompson was the most ruthless family lawyer in the state, known for destroying children on the stand to win custody battles. Let him come, Emily said quietly. I have something he doesn't expect. Before anyone could ask what she meant, the bailiff called them in. The courtroom was smaller than Emily had imagined, more intimate, which somehow made it worse. Lucas sat at the defendant's table, looking haggard but defiant. He'd lost weight in custody, his designer suit hanging loose, but his eyes still burned with that familiar cruel fire. Judge Margaret Ellison presided, a stroke of luck, as she was known for prioritizing children's welfare over parental rights. She'd also been at the gala where Lucas had first humiliated Nadia, though she would never admit that influenced her. This is a custody hearing for Emily Marie Larson, age 9. The judge began. Mr. Larson is petitioning for immediate return of custody from his sister, Clara Larson, who currently has temporary emergency custody. Thompson stood, his voice oily with false concern. Your Honor, my client has been the victim of an orchestrated campaign by his vindictive ex-wife and his manipulated daughter. He's a loving father whose child has been turned against him through lies and bribes. Interesting theory, Judge Ellison said dryly. I've reviewed the evidence submitted, nearly 100 hours of video and audio recordings. Are you suggesting a 9-year-old fabricated all of this? We believe the child was coached, Your Honor. possibly drugged or hypnotized. My client wants his daughter psychologically evaluated. I volunteer, Emily said suddenly, standing. Test me for anything drugs, hypnosis, coaching, but I want to testify first. The judge studied her. Are you sure, young lady? You can have a child advocate present. I don't need one. I've been my own advocate for years. She was sworn in and took the stand. Thompson approached like a shark, smelling blood. Emily, he began with false kindness. You love your father, don't you? I loved who I thought he was, Emily replied calmly. I loved the idea of having a father, but the actual man? No, I don't love him. How can you love someone who sees you as property? These are very adult words for a 9-year-old. Trauma ages you quickly, Mr. Thompson. Would you like me to use smaller words? Daddy mean, daddy hurt people, daddy bad. Is that better? Snickers from the gallery. The judge hid a smile. Thompson's face tightened. You've been spending a lot of time with your father's ex-wife. Has she been telling you stories about him? No. She actually refuses to talk about him around me. She says it's not appropriate to burden children with adult problems, unlike my father, who told me regularly that I was a burden, a mistake. And what was the phrase? Oh yes, the consequence of a night he can't remember with a woman he wishes he could forget. Gasps from the gallery. Lucas's face went red. That's taken out of context, he shouted. Your Honor, Emily said, turning to the judge. I have the full recording if you'd like to hear the context. It was my 7th birthday party. He was explaining to his business partner why there were no other children invited. He said, bringing children around me might make their parents think he actually cared about the brat. Play it, the judge ordered. The recording filled the courtroom. It was worse in context. Lucas laughing about how he'd only kept Emily to maintain his image as a family man for business deals. Moving on, Thompson said, clearly rattled. You claim your father neglected you, yet you lived in a mansion, attended private school, had nannies. Neglect isn't just physical, Mr. Thompson. It's forgetting your child exists for weeks at a time. It's missing every birthday, every school play, every moment that matters. It's looking through your daughter like she's invisible, unless there's a camera present. She pulled out a small notebook. Would you like me to read the list? Every event he missed, I kept track. 3 years of records. He attended exactly 4 events, all of them photographed for society pages. Children exaggerate. The 15th of January, 2022. School science fair. I won first place. Father was in the building. His office is next door. He couldn't walk 50 feet. The 3rd of March, 2022. Birthday. He was home but locked in his study. Sent the nanny with a credit card to buy a present. May 19th, 2022. School play. I played the lead. He said he'd come. I saved him a seat. It stayed empty. June. We get the point. Thompson interrupted. Do you? Emily asked. Because there are 47 more entries for that year alone. She turned to look at Lucas directly. The saddest part isn't that you didn't love me. It's that you didn't even try to pretend, except when it benefited you. Your Honor, Thompson said desperately, the child is clearly disturbed. She needs therapy, not to be kept from her father. I've been in therapy for 2 years. Emily said calmly. Clara arranged it when she noticed I was showing signs of emotional abuse. Dr. Susan Lin can testify if needed. She's documented everything. The judge nodded. I'd like to hear from Dr. Lin. The therapist was called. She was a petite woman with a quiet authority that filled the room. Emily is one of the most resilient children I've ever worked with, she testified. She's also one of the most traumatized. In my professional opinion, returning her to Mr. Larson would cause irreparable psychological harm. She exhibits classic symptoms of a child who's had to raise herself while managing a narcissistic parent's ego. That's ridiculous. Lucas started to shout. Mr. Larson, the judge warned, you'll have your chance to speak. When Lucas finally took the stand, Thompson tried to paint him as a misunderstood father, overwhelmed by business pressures, trying his best. Do you love your daughter? Thompson asked. Of course I do. She's my blood. That's not what I asked. Do you love Emily, the person, her personality, her intelligence, her spirit? Lucas hesitated just a beat too long. She's my daughter. You told Sophia Bennett you were planning to send her to military school. The prosecutor interjected. That was taken out of context. Your Honor, the prosecutor said. We have Miss Bennett here to testify if needed. Sophia was called. She looked nervous but determined. He said Emily was damaged goods. She testified, said her mother had ruined her with soft ideas, and he needed to break her down and rebuild her properly. He showed me brochures for military academies in Eastern Europe, said they knew how to fix problem children. Did he ever speak lovingly of his daughter? The judge asked. Sophia shook her head. He spoke about her like a defective product he was stuck with. It made me sick. It's one of the reasons I ended the engagement. Seeing how he talked about his own child. The final blow came when Clara testified. She spoke about finding Emily hiding in closets to avoid her father's rages, about the child's failure to thrive despite material wealth, about the bruises she'd documented. But the worst part, Clara said, tears in her eyes, was watching my niece disappear. She stopped laughing. She stopped playing. She became this tiny adult, always watching, always afraid. In the 2 months she's been with me, I've seen glimpses of the child. She could have been happy, free, safe. Your Honor. Thompson made one last attempt. Surely a child belongs with her biological parent. Biology doesn't make a parent, the judge interrupted. Love, care, and protection make a parent. Mr. Larson, in all the testimony I've heard, in all the evidence presented, I haven't heard a single instance of you acting in your daughter's best interest unless it served your own. She looked at Emily. Young lady, you're remarkably brave and remarkably brilliant. No child should have to be either to survive their childhood, then to the courtroom. I hereby grant permanent full custody to Clara Larson. Lucas Larson's parental rights are terminated effective immediately. He is to have no contact with the child until she reaches 18, and only then if she chooses to initiate contact. You can't do this, Lucas exploded, jumping to his feet. She's mine, my property, my blood. And that, Mr. Larson, the judge said coldly, is exactly why you're losing her. Children are not property. Bailiff, please remove Mr. Larson. As they dragged him out, he screamed at Emily, "You'll regret this. You'll come crawling back. You're nothing without my name." Emily stood, her small frame somehow filling the courtroom. I was nothing with it. Now I get to become everything despite it. The courtroom erupted in applause, unprecedented for a custody hearing. The judge didn't even call for order. Outside the courthouse, Emily stood between Clara and Nadia, breathing free air for the first time in her life. "How do you feel?" a reporter asked. "Like I finally get to be a child," Emily answered. Ethan stood nearby, and Emily saw him take Nadia's hand quietly, away from the cameras. Nadia didn't pull away. "What's next for you?" another reporter called out. Emily looked up at the two women who'd saved her, one by blood, one by choice, and smiled. "Whatever I want, for the first time in my life. Whatever I want." Chapter 9. The final confrontation begins. The criminal trial of Lucas Larson began on a morning when ice covered Hartford like a crystal shroud, making the whole city shimmer with dangerous beauty, a perfect metaphor for the man himself. Emily sat in the prosecution's witness room, reviewing her testimony one final time. She wasn't allowed in the courtroom until called, but she could feel the electricity in the air. Today, her father would finally face the consequences of his crimes, not just against her, but against everyone he'd destroyed over the years. Clara sat beside her, holding her hand. "You don't have to do this. The financial evidence is enough to convict him. The jury needs to see who he really is," Emily said firmly. "Not just a white-collar criminal, but a man who would destroy his own child for power." Nadia entered with Ethan, both dressed professionally, but with an air of unity that made Emily's heart warm. Over the past month, their relationship had slowly evolved from careful friendship to something deeper. They thought they were being discreet, but Emily had seen the way they looked at each other, the way their hands found each other in moments of stress. "The prosecution says Lucas's lawyer is going to claim temporary insanity," Ethan reported. "Says the stress of the divorce and business failures caused a breakdown." Emily laughed bitterly. "He's not insane. He's exactly who he's always been." The mask just finally came off. A knock at the door interrupted them. Assistant District Attorney Robert Hayes entered, his expression grim. "We have a problem," he said. "Lucas's lawyer just submitted new evidence. He claims to have proof that Emily was coached by Nadia, that this whole thing is an elaborate revenge plot." "What kind of proof?" Clara demanded. "Emails between Nadia and Emily, planning the downfall, discussing strategy." Emily felt her blood turn to ice, then fire. "Those are fake. I never emailed Nadia about any of this." "We know," Hayes said, "but they're sophisticated forgeries. We need to prove they're fake, and that takes time we don't have. The judge is allowing them to be presented. Then we pivot," Emily said, her mind racing. "Let them present the emails. I have something better." "Emily, what?" Nadia asked. "Trust me," she said, looking at each adult in turn. "I've been preparing for this moment for 3 years. I'm ready." 2 hours later, the courtroom was packed. Media, society figures, victims of Lucas's schemes. Everyone wanted to witness the fall of the king. Lucas sat at the defense table in an expensive suit that couldn't hide his hollow eyes and trembling hands. Prison hadn't been kind to him. His lawyer, Thompson, again, stood to make his opening statement. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my client is guilty. Guilty of being a flawed father, an imperfect husband, perhaps even an aggressive businessman. But he is not guilty of the crimes charged. He is the victim of an elaborate frame-up orchestrated by his ex-wife and, tragically, his own daughter, who was manipulated into destroying her father. He presented the forged emails with theatrical flair, showing supposed conversations between Nadia and Emily, planning everything from the planted evidence to the recorded conversations. This poor child, Thompson continued, was turned into a weapon against her own father. The real criminal here is the woman who used a 9-year-old's pain for her own revenge. The prosecution's turn came, and Hayes was brilliant. He systematically destroyed the email evidence, showing technical proof of forgery. But the damage was partially done. Doubt had been planted. Then Emily was called to testify. She walked to the stand with perfect posture, her new dress chosen by Clara not as a prop, but with love making her look exactly what she was. A child who'd been forced to grow up too fast. Emily, Hayes began gently, did Nadia Freeman coach you to destroy your father? No, Emily said clearly. Nadia didn't even know I was collecting evidence until the night of the first gala. She's never asked me to do anything except be a child, which is more than my father ever did. Why did you collect all that evidence? Emily looked directly at the jury. Because I was afraid that one day he would kill me, maybe not physically, but spiritually. I needed protection. Evidence was my shield. That's a very mature thought for a 6-year-old. When you're raised by a predator, you learn to think like prey, always watching, always ready to run, always gathering resources for survival. Thompson stood for cross-examination, his smile sharp. Miss Larson, or should I say Miss Clara's ward, you claim you were afraid of your father, yet you lived with him for 9 years. Where else could I go? I was a child. You could have told someone. I did. I told nannies who were fired for overstepping. I told teachers who were told I was imaginative. I told his business partners who laughed and said I'd understand when I was older. No one listens to children when money is involved. So you decided to destroy him instead. I decided to survive him. There's a difference. Thompson pulled out a tablet. I have here your school records, straight A's, perfect attendance, glowing teacher reviews, hardly the profile of an abused child. Emily's composure finally cracked, but not in the way Thompson expected. She laughed, a sound too bitter for a 9-year-old. You think abuse only looks like bruises and failing grades? Abuse can look like perfection. Mr. Thompson, it's the child who never makes mistakes because mistakes mean rage. It's the student who never misses school because school is safer than home. It's the girl who gets perfect grades because maybe if she's perfect enough, her father will finally see her as more than an inconvenience. She pulled out her own tablet, which Hayes quickly admitted as evidence. You want to see what abuse looks like? Here's my diary, not written. Video, 3 years of daily entries. The first video played. 6-year-old Emily hiding in her closet, whispering, Daddy hit Nadia again. She tried to cover the bruise with makeup, but I wish I was brave enough to help her. I wish I was brave enough to help myself. Another entry, age 7. Father forgot my birthday again. Nadia tried to make a cake secretly, but he found out and threw it in the trash. Said, celebrations make children soft. I saved one piece. It tasted like love. Age 8. Father says I'm getting too much like Nadia. He says it like it's bad, but Nadia is the only person who ever loved me. So maybe being like her means I'm capable of being loved. Maybe that's what he hates. The final entry, recorded just before the first gala. Tomorrow, I start fighting back. Not with fists or words, but with truth. Father taught me that information is power. Time to use his lessons against him. The courtroom was silent, except for muffled sobs from the gallery. Those could be scripted, Thompson said desperately. Then how about this? Emily pulled out a small box from her pocket. My father's hair and mine. I had them tested at 3 different labs. She handed the results to Hayes. He's not my biological father. The courtroom exploded. Lucas jumped to his feet. That's impossible. You knew, Emily said calmly. You've always known. That's why you never loved me. I was proof of Mother Nadia's life before you. Proof you couldn't own her completely. Your Honor, Hayes said, we'd like to submit these DNA results as evidence of motive. Mr. Larson wasn't just abusing his daughter. He was holding another man's child hostage for image management. That's not I loved. Lucas was sputtering. You loved control, Emily said quietly, and when you couldn't control Nadia anymore, you tried to control me. But here's the thing about trying to cage a phoenix. We're born from fire. You can't burn what's already been through hell. She looked at the jury. I'm not asking you to convict him because he was a bad father. I'm asking you to convict him because he's a criminal who happened to also be a bad father. The evidence is clear. The financial crimes, the bribery, the embezzlement, it's all there. I'm just the bonus proof that his cruelty had no limits. As she stepped down from the stand, she passed Lucas's table. He grabbed her wrist, not hard, but desperately. Emily, please, you're all I have left. She looked at his hand on her wrist, then at his face. No, I'm all you've lost, and you did it to yourself. She pulled free and walked to Nadia, who wrapped her in a fierce embrace. The trial continued for 3 more days. Witness after witness testified to Lucas's crimes. Business partners he'd cheated, officials he'd bribed, investors he'd defrauded. The evidence was overwhelming, but the most damaging testimony came from an unexpected source, Chloe. She took the stand on day 3, looking smaller than Emily remembered. He told me his daughter was a burden, she testified. Said once we were married and had real children, he'd send her away. He had already picked out the school, a military academy in Serbia known for breaking difficult children. He laughed about it. Laughed about destroying a 9-year-old's spirit. Why are you testifying? The prosecutor asked. Because I was almost her, Chloe said, looking at Emily. Another woman he would have destroyed for sport. She saved me by showing me the truth. The least I can do is tell it. Chapter 10. The Phoenix's Revenge. The verdict was scheduled for 2:00 p.m. on a Thursday that would go down in Connecticut legal history. Emily stood before the courthouse bathroom mirror, 9 years old, but carrying centuries in her eyes. Clara had braided her hair like Nadia used to. She wore a simple black dress with a phoenix pin. Ethan's gift. Ready, baby girl? Nadia asked. I've been ready for 3 years. They walked together, Emily, Nadia, Clara, and Ethan. A family forged by choice. The gallery was packed, media waiting, the city holding its breath. Chaos erupted as they reached the doors. Screams, security rushing inside. Lucas's voice unhinged. You can't do this to me. I built this city. They pushed through to find Lucas standing on the defense table, wielding a letter opener from his lawyer's briefcase. Security surrounding him. Emily, tell them you lied. Emily stepped forward despite Clara's grasp. The courtroom fell silent. Put the weapon down, father. Don't call me that. You're not mine. You're right. I never was. I'm Nadia's daughter, in everything that matters. You're just a man holding a letter opener like a sword, thinking you're still king when your kingdom is ash. I'll destroy you all. I have friends. Money hidden. Actually, you don't. Robert Hayes entered with FBI agents, and someone unexpected, Edward Larson, Lucas's father, wheelchair-bound but commanding. I've been watching you destroy everything I built, Edward said. Emily showed me what I should have seen. He gestured to Hayes's folder. Swiss banks, Cayman accounts, 23 million stolen from investors and family trust. Father, no. I disowned you this morning. Everything goes to a foundation for abused children, with Emily and Clara as trustees. You get nothing. Lucas lunged at Emily with the blade raised. Ethan stepped between them, taking the blade in his shoulder. Nadia struck Lucas's wrist with a bailiff's baton. The weapon flew. Emily's voice echoed. You have no power here. Security swarmed Lucas. Emily pulled out her recorder. Play this. Lucas's voice from 3 years ago filled the courtroom. If you ever try to take Emily, I'll kill you. I'll make it look like an accident. The child too, if necessary. Then Nadia's voice. I'm recording this, Lucas. No, you're not. I destroyed your phone. Emily is. She's been recording everything. His laugh. She's 6 years old and smarter than both of us. Someday she'll play this for the world. That's why Nadia left without me. Emily told the silent courtroom. Not because she didn't love me, but to save us both. She left so I could survive. I survived to save us both. Judge Thompson spoke. Mr. Larson, you're charged with attempted assault with a deadly weapon. Remove him to psychiatric holding. As they dragged him away, Lucas found Emily's eyes. She saw recognition, understanding of what he'd destroyed. Emily, he whispered. Goodbye, Mr. Larson. The doors closed. Emily went to Ethan, being treated by paramedics. You saved me. No, you saved yourself. You saved all of us. Judge Thompson rendered the verdict in absentia. Guilty on all 37 counts. Maximum sentence recommended. Hayes's phone rang. His face pallid. Luca attempted escape during transport. He's being transferred to a secure psychiatric facility. He can't hurt anyone anymore. Emily felt 3 years of tension release. Later, in Clara's living room, Edward Larson sat with them. I failed him. Taught him power over people. You gave him tools, Emily corrected. He chose how to use them. We all have choices. Edward studied her. You're remarkable. I have his intelligence, his strategic mind, but also Nadia's heart, Clara's strength, and my choice to protect instead of destroy. The foundation, Edward said. Producing documents, 23 million. Your name on everything. The Phoenix Foundation, Emily said. For children rising from ashes. Nadia knielt beside her. Baby girl, About your biological father. James Carter died in Afghanistan before you knew you were pregnant. Lucas knew. He married you to own something beautiful. Through tears, Nadia asked, "Would you let me adopt you?" Officially, yes. Emily looked at Clara. Co-guardians perfect. Children can't have too many people who love them. Ethan, arm in a sling, pulled out a ring box. Nadia Freeman, you've shown me strength and grace coexist. That phoenixes are real. Would you? Yes. This was Emily's real revenge. Building family from ruins, finding love where he'd sown hate. 6 months later, the Phoenix Foundation's first gala was held where Lucas had first humiliated Nadia. "My name is Emily Phoenix Freeman Caldwell." She announced from the podium, "I'm 10 years old, and I'm a survivor." She addressed the audience, dignitaries, donors, children. The foundation had helped. People ask if I forgive him. The man in psychiatric prison for life? No. Forgiveness is for those who change. He sought only control. She held Lucas's last letter over a candle, letting it burn. "But I don't carry hatred. That would give him power." The ashes fell. He's nothing now. Not father, not enemy, not even a memory worth keeping. The Phoenix Foundation isn't about revenge. It's about resurrection. Taking the worst thing that happened and transforming it into power to help others. She looked at Sophie, 7 years old, whose story echoed hers. To every child told they're worthless, treated like property, "You are phoenixes. You will rise." The applause was deafening. Emily heard chains breaking, cages opening. Nadia embraced her. "I'm so proud, baby girl." "Mom," Emily said, "we're free." In a psychiatric facility, Lucas sat in a padded room, talking to shadows about his empire. His words meant nothing. He'd become what he'd always feared, irrelevant. In a ballroom full of light, a 10-year-old girl stood tall, surrounded by chosen family proof that the greatest revenge isn't destruction. It's becoming everything your abuser said you'd never be. Emily Phoenix Freeman Caldwell looked at her family, her foundation, her future spreading like wings. She hadn't just survived, she had won. The phoenix had risen. Epilogue. 5 years later, Emily stood before the congressional hearing, 15 years old, but carrying herself with the gravity of someone who'd seen too much and chosen to transform it into purpose. "Senator, you ask why a 15-year-old should be heard on matters of child protection law. I answer, because I survived what your current laws failed to prevent, because I have the scars, physical and emotional, that your indifference allowed, and because the Phoenix Foundation has helped 3,000 children escape situations your system ignored." She placed a thick folder on the table. These are their stories, children failed by laws that prioritize biological rights over safety, wealth over welfare, appearance over truth. The senator shifted uncomfortably. "Miss Freeman Caldwell, surely you're not suggesting—" "I'm suggesting exactly what you think I'm suggesting," Emily interrupted calmly. "That money and power have insulated abusers for too long. That children's voices are dismissed until tragedy makes them impossible to ignore. That my biological father sat on committees like this one, while terrorizing his family at home." She looked directly at the cameras broadcasting the hearing nationally. "Lucas Larson died last year in psychiatric custody, alone and unmourned. But there are thousands of Lucas Larsons still out there, hiding behind respectability while destroying the children they claim to own. This bill, Emily's Law, as the media has named it, will give children the right to seek protective separation without requiring physical evidence of abuse. It acknowledges that emotional terrorism leaves no bruises but kills souls just the same." "The cost," another senator began. "The cost of prevention is always less than the cost of damage," Emily said firmly. "I should know the therapy, the trials, the years of recovery. They cost far more than early intervention would have, but more than money. Consider the cost in human potential. How many children like me never get the chance to rise? How many phoenixes die in their ashes because no one gives them wings?" She stood, and the room seemed to hold its breath. "I was lucky. I had Nadia, who loved me despite the danger. I had Clara, who gave me sanctuary. I had Ethan, who showed me that masculine strength doesn't require cruelty. I had resources, intelligence, and, frankly, exceptional circumstances that allowed me to orchestrate my own rescue. But children shouldn't need to be exceptional to be saved. They shouldn't need to be strategic masterminds at age 6, evidence collectors at 7, and courtroom warriors at 9. They should just need to be children asking for help." She pulled out a photo herself at 9, standing in the courtroom the day Lucas was convicted. This little girl saved herself because the system wouldn't. How many more are out there, waiting for rescue that never comes? Pass this bill. Give them the wings the law currently denies them. Let them rise. The hearing room erupted in applause from the gallery survivors, advocates, parents who understood. The senators looked uncomfortable. aware that opposing this bill would be political suicide after Emily's testimony went viral, which it would within hours. As Emily left the stand, she was met by her family, Nadia and Ethan, with their 2-year-old son, James, named for Emily's biological father, Clara, with her partner, Olivia, and Edward, now 88, proud of the legacy Emily had built from his family's ashes. "How did it go?" Nadia asked, though her proud smile said she already knew. "They'll pass it," Emily said confidently. "They have no choice. I made sure of that." "Still playing chess while everyone else plays checkers," Ethan teased gently. "Someone has to," Emily replied, but her smile was warm. "Besides, I learned from the best, worst example. Lucas taught me that power without purpose is poison. So, I choose purpose with power instead." Little James reached for his big sister, and Emily lifted him easily, a child who would never know the fear she'd known, who would grow up surrounded by the love she'd had to fight to find. "Story?" he asked hopefully. "Later, little Phoenix," she promised. "Right now, we have work to do." As they walked out of the Capitol building into the bright Washington sunshine, Emily felt the weight of her past and the lightness of her future in perfect balance. She was no longer the scared child collecting evidence in secret, no longer the warrior child facing down a monster in court. She was Emily Phoenix Freeman Caldwell, survivor, advocate, daughter, sister, and proof that sometimes the best revenge isn't just living well, it's living with purpose, with love, with the determination to ensure no other child faces what you faced alone. The Phoenix had risen, the daughter had her revenge, and she was using it to light the way for others to rise. The cycle of abuse had ended, the cycle of resurrection had begun, and it was beautiful. The end. This story is dedicated to every child who has had to be their own hero, to every survivor who chose to rise rather than revenge, and to every adult who stands between a child and harm. You are all phoenixes. You all deserve to soar.